Someone in your organization has a procurement technology business case on their desk right now with a 6-month implementation timeline on it. Maybe it's already been approved. Maybe it's about to go to the CFO. And I'm telling you right now, that 6-month number is almost certainly wrong. Not because anybody lied, not because the vendor is bad at their job, but because as humans, the way we build timeline estimates is structurally designed to produce optimistic numbers. And there's 16,000 projects worth of evidence to prove it. This week, why your ProcureTech timeline estimate is almost certainly wrong, and what a Nobel Prize winning researcher figured out about how to fix it. Let's get into it. Welcome back to ProcureTech Unpacked, the show that's all about showing procurement professionals the art of the possible with technology. This week's show is about something I think every procurement leader needs to hear before they sign off on a technology business case. The topic, implementation timeline estimates. Specifically, why the number in your business case is almost always wrong. Oxford professor Brent Flubjerg, and I hope I'm saying that right, studied more than 16,000 projects across 136 countries. Only 8.5% came in on time and on budget. If you add delivered the promised benefits to that criteria, it drops to 0.5%. Mind you, this was across the board in projects, not just IT projects or ProcureTech projects, but that number is fairly striking, 0.5%. Flubjerg calls this the planning fallacy. It's a term that was originally coined by Nobel laureate Joël Collin-Demers, and it's the systematic tendency to underestimate cost and timelines while overestimating the benefits. And it doesn't happen because people are incompetent. It happens because of how we're looking at the problem. Here's what happens when you plan a ProcureTech project the typical way. You sit down with your team, you list the tasks, you estimate the durations. You factor in what you know about your specific situation, such as your data quality, your team's bandwidth, your stakeholder landscape. You add a buffer. Maybe it's 15% if you're a fan of the Project Management Institute. And then you arrive at a number that feels reasonable. Kahneman and Flubjerg call this the inside view. It treats your project as a unique project, and it ignores almost completely what's called the base rate, or how other similar projects have actually performed in the real world. So it's like estimating how long your kitchen renovation is going to take by carefully planning every step against your kitchen and ignoring how long most kitchen renovations of the same size take in general. The inside view feels rigorous, and that's exactly why it's a dangerous trap. The fix is what Flubjerg calls reference class forecasting, or the outside view. So instead of starting from your project and building those estimates out, you start from the historical record for projects of the same type and you work inwards. This requires 3 steps. Number 1, you identify what your reference class is. So past projects that are comparable to yours in scope and complexity, and would probably mean your industry. Number 2, you gather actual outcome data. Not what those projects were planned to cost or how long they should take. Not what it says on the case studies on the vendor websites. Not what is shared on the conference stages. You go and get a relevant data sample on what they actually cost and how long they actually took to implement. Number 3, you position your project straight in the middle of that distribution, and only then do you start adjusting for your specific circumstances, and you only adjust at the margins. So to do this, you could pound the pavement, make phone calls, and research how long similar deployments took in contexts similar to yours, right? Similar industry, different geographies, right? Or at conferences, finding other organizations of similar sizes and having frank discussions with them on how long different projects took. You'll find that the real distribution based on these one-on-one conversations with relevant third parties that have no incentive to beautify any of the numbers is going to be the realest data that you can find. And that typical 6-month estimate, you'll probably find that the fastest real deployments took 8 to 9 months. The medium was more like 12 to 14. And a meaningful chunk of them, although outliers, took 18 or more. Now, I can already hear you. Our situation is unique. We have a great implementation partner. We're a mature team. We did the prep work. And every single confident project team says this. But Flubjerg's database of 16,000 projects tells us that virtually every single one of them was wrong. Across IT, building roads, building infrastructure, building towers, building bridges, building data centers, etc. Your project is not as unique as you think, and you're not as prescient as you think. Humans all have the same cognitive planning biases, and that's a statistical fact based on this study, not a criticism. But here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Even if you understand this planning fallacy, there's a second force that's working against you that we design for ourselves. It's not cognitive, it's structural. Think about what happens during a software RFP. You ask 3 vendors and 2 system implementers, or SIs, for timelines. Each one knows that whoever comes in with the lowest cost and the shortest timeline probably has the best chance to win this conversation. That's a textbook prisoner's dilemma. Everyone in there is incentivized to give you the best case scenario. Not the most realistic scenario, but the best case. And sometimes you also want the best case numbers as well, because a business case that says 18 months and 1.2 million doesn't get approved. But a business case that says 9 months and 600K does get approved. So the vendor is incentivized to understate, and you, as someone who wants the project to go ahead, is incentivized to let them. And so because you want the project to go ahead, your project plan is now anchored in an unrealistic number, and it'll get you into trouble later on. I've sat in rooms a bunch of times where a project team was presenting a vendor's 8-month estimate to their leadership, and you could see on the faces of everybody who's already done one of these projects before that nobody believed it. But going back with a realistic number would have killed the project. So the optimistic number became the plan, and then the month number 14 rolls around and everybody kind of pretends the original timeline never existed. So what's the point? Why am I telling you all this? What do you actually do with this information? Here, I'll assume that you want the real numbers, right? That you're not doing this on purpose. First, if you're about to start a business case, build your reference class before you issue the RFP. So talk to peers who've done comparable deployments. Ask the right question, not how did it go or what was your favorite vendor, but what was your original timeline and what was the actual timeline. The gap between those two numbers is your reference class talking and giving you information. And if you have this information when you present your project, it'll also put weight behind your business case numbers, right? You're not just relying on a vendor or on the RFP responses. Second, during the evaluation, ask your shortlisted vendors and SIs to share a timeline range across their last 10 to 20 comparable deployments. The fastest, the slowest, the median. Make it clear that you're expecting to see a wide range in there, that you don't want them to cherry pick data. You want the good, the bad, and the ugly. Compare the numbers to your reference class data, and I think you'll see, in some cases, the RFP prisoner's dilemma at work. Don't just take the RFP timeline and run with it. Make sure you're getting data in another way as well before you sign off on that final schedule and budget. So there you have it. That's the framework. Bottom-up planning has a structural bias problem, which I think I illustrated, and reference class forecasting is how you correct for it. I'll admit, it's counterintuitive, it's uncomfortable to explain, and it's also the scientifically proven right thing to do if you actually want accurate numbers. The link to my original article exploring this topic further in the context of ProcureTech is in the show notes. I'd also recommend reading How Big Things Get Done by Brent Flubjerg if you want to dive deeper into the concepts of reference class forecasting. And if your RFP process has been feeding you optimistic numbers on software RFPs for years, now you know why. If you like today's show, consider giving us a follow on your podcast platform of choice. On next week's episode, Matthew Buckingham is back. We're going deep on AI agents in procurement, exploring practical definitions, where they should fit in your stack, and where they shouldn't. See you soon. That's a wrap on this episode of ProcureTech Unpacked. If this one resonated, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and sign up for the Procurement newsletter for weekly insights between episodes. If something we covered sparked a question or an idea, we'd love to hear from you. All the links for the reports we discussed are in the show notes. We'll see you next time.
Resonate.